Hello everybody, this is Dragonzilla1991 here, and as part of the 20th anniversary to the 2005 BBC series Walking with Monsters, Life Before Dinosaurs, today's/tonight's review will be on two, because basically one of them is the same animal but from another manufacturer, and they would be the Permian animals, those being the Collecta, Dimetrodon and Edaphosaurus, and revisiting the Papo Dimetrodon. Now, if you know your prehistoric animals like I do, then you'll probably recognise these creatures. But to those who don't know, well, here's a brief recap. Both Dimetrodon and Edaphosaurus were a unique group of animals known as pelycosaurs, and they were part of another group of animals known as synapsids. They first evolved 308 million years ago during the late Carboniferous and would dominate the planet during the early Permian period 290 million years ago. Now, there were many species of sailbacks, but the two most famous members were of course Dimetrodon and its herbivorous cousin Edaphosaurus. And although they lived at the same time as one another, however, Edaphosaurus was around longer, as Dimetrodon only evolved much later, but eventually Edaphosaurus went extinct 270 million years ago, and Dimetrodon disappeared 2 million years later. However, they would both be replaced by the therapsids. Now, both synapsids are often mistaken to be dinosaurs or even dinosaur ancestors, and on first sight they do look like reptiles, and you would be forgiven into thinking that they were reptiles, but take a closer look and then it'll begin to click that these animals were actually more closely related to mammals than reptiles. And I don't know if this is true or not, or this is an old theory, but they may have also been the distant ancestors to us. The first of these sailbacks is Edaphosaurus, who originated in the late Carboniferous period 303.4 million years ago. These animals were native to North America and Europe, and then became extinct 272.5 million years ago during the early Permian, as I just said. So these gentle giants for their day would have already kicked the bucket by the time the Great Dying Mass Extinction event occurred 250 million years ago. Now, onto the model itself, and this particular figure was announced only a year after Dimetrodon, who we'll be looking at shortly, and it makes sense, because this was another requested one. Well, it was on my request list. Firstly is the colour scheme, and my goodness, it's beautifully lovely. Being all bright green with brown patterns, and the sail is a dark pink colour with brown markings and a bit of greenish showing. Speaking of which, I really do like the sail. It appears to be the correct shape. And you have the side bumps. I'm not sure if that's what they're really called, but they run up the spine, as you can see. My favourite part of the model would be the head, as it does actually remind me of an iguana, even though, as I said at the start, Edaphosaurus wasn't related to iguanas. And the facial expression in my eyes makes him look a bit stern. The pose isn't anything too active, as it only shows Edaphosaurus looking all natural, because this would have been a calm animal, unless threatened by a predator or even a rival threat. In my opinion, Edaphosaurus is often underrepresented, as it lives in the shadow of Dimetrodon. However, once upon a time Bullyland did make a model of this animal, but it was unfortunately discontinued many years ago, and I think other companies should make their own interpretation of this synapsid, because I would honestly love to see Safari or even Mojo make their own figures of this animal. Well, any company except Shrike. But until then, Collecta is the perfect representation of Edaphosaurus. Up next is not only the top Permian carnivore that would have preyed upon Edaphosaurus, but is also considered to be the icon of the Paleozoic, Dimetrodon. And for Collecta's interpretation of this animal, well, I think they really knocked it out of the park, and it seems to reflect the likeness extremely well. I mean, you can tell this is Dimetrodon. I like the colour scheme, which is a mixture of brown and green, and the eyes are a dark blood red. There'll be close-ups. In fact, although it's not identical, but it is quite similar to the colour palettes that were seen on the Walking with Monsters portrayal of the animal. The legs are sticking straight up and not sprawled out at the sides, like a lizard as seen on outdated reconstructions, or even on the Papo model that we'll be looking at shortly. The tail is quite short, but I think some did have short tails, and others long, and the skin around the body, on one hand, looks reptilian, but clearly mammalian looking at the same time. I have seen modern reconstructions of Dimetrodon possessing fur or hair, to which again, to my knowledge, we don't have any evidence to suggest that it did, and I suspect that if there was fur present, it would have been fine hair. Interestingly, the underbelly appears to be quite scaly, possibly a hangover from a reptilian ancestry. However, we can't talk about Dimetrodon without mentioning the sail on his back, and how Collecta have portrayed it is just pure perfection, because the tips of the spine are stuck out, and there is also a tear present, and given the lives and environment that these animals lived, this would have been possible. And you've got the head, which is just spot on. I like the way that the mouth has been made, because it does give the impression that Dimetrodon is smiling, and the figure also possesses an articulated jaw, and when closed, he does look quite different, and like a completely different model. Also, whether it's open or closed, the teeth are on show, where they should be covered over by lips. Again, we can see this on the Walk of the Monsters portrayal. However, he could just be snarling, and maybe prey or even a rival. Out of all figures and merchandise of Dimetrodon, I will say that Collecta's portrayal has truly captured what the animal would have looked like in life, unless of course there are any inaccuracies that I missed, to which you guys could just spot out and mention in the comments. And Safari's take, which was announced shortly after the Collecta model was unveiled, does look incredible, and I do hope to get it at some point in the future, but I like Collecta's a lot more, and this is how I imagine Dimetrodon to look like. Finally, for the early Permian Pelycosaur trio is Papo's interpretation of Dimetrodon, and this was actually the third figure that I ever reviewed for the series, 10 years ago to be precise. And you're probably wondering, why am I talking about it again? Well, that's simply because the video itself is now old and outdated, and the link is in the description below in case you wish to check it out. But after watching it, I think you'll understand why this figure was in desperate need of a revisit. So first is the colour scheme, and it's what I can only describe as honey colour, with black markings, and the sail is orange with black lines. And let's now talk about the sail on this Dimetrodon. As you can see, it's fully complete, where there should be tears and the tips of the spine should stick out. However, you know what Papo are like, they never pay attention to the latest scientific studies, with some exceptions of course, but still like to stylize. Although to be fair, when this figure was announced and released, this was the image of Dimetrodon that the world was accustomed to, but I don't know when the upright hypothesis came round, so I'm guessing it was either 2014 or 2015. Again, I could be wrong, it might have been earlier, however you could just let me know in the comments. The legs are sprawled out at the side like a lizard, to which again, as we all know, this wouldn't have been possible for the animal, and he's dragging his tail on the ground where it should be straight off and a bit more streamlined, and the teeth really do stick out, where what's more, there should be lips covering them. And just like Collecta, he comes with an articulated jaw, and looks different once the mouth is closed. Papo's take on Dimetrodon, although inaccurate, is fairly decent for the most part. And while yes, I do like it, as I got it in London many years ago, all the way back in mid-2015, along with the Schleich Dragon Flyer. However, I will say that this figure is inferior compared to the Collecta and Safari models, but it's still nice looking nonetheless. However, I will say that if you're looking for this model, be careful, because he also has a bootleg counterpart. Now, what are my final thoughts on both the Collecta, Edaphosaurus and Dimetrodon, as well as Papo's interpretation? Well, the Collecta models are truly fantastic, and are excellent representations of the animals. And Papo, well I guess for that one, it's up to you. I mean, if you're a sucker for scientific accuracy, then you'll definitely want to pass on it, and go for the Collecta and Safari Limited Dimetrodons instead. However, if you just like the animal in general, then yes, by all means go for it. Dimetrodon is not only my favourite Pelycosaur, but it's also my favourite Permian animal, period. But I do think that, in manufacturer terms, this carnivore should be rested, as we have enough figures and models of this animal to keep us going for the time being, especially since Schleich have just recently unveiled their latest for next year, and if I'm going to be honest, that figure looks absolutely and atrociously awful. Especially after being spoiled by the woolly mouth and Spilodon. Yeah, things have started to look up for the German company, and it's all gone downhill again. Anyway, I didn't mean to get off topic, but my point is, I believe that Dimetrodon should be rested for now, and we would like some more models of Edaphosaurus, or any other Pelycosaur. Dimetrodon is often chosen because not only is it different and iconic, but it's often mistaken to be a dinosaur, where really it was a synapsid. And I actually keep both the Collecta and Papo Dimetrodons, as well as Edaphosaurus and the other Permian Goliaths in my prehistoric mammal collection, because that's what they're more closely related to. This is Dragonzilla 1991 signing out. Take care, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now. You know, I came into existence on the 16th of December 1991, and yet the Peter Jackson remake of King Kong premiered on the 14th of December 2005, and Walk of the Monsters Episode 2 released on the 15th the following day. Wow, what a birthday that was.